Former Vice President Joe Biden is back in the headlines again, but not for what you think, Hawk Watchers. You see, while the world has rightfully been examining and calling out the former president's rather handsy approach when standing next to women and girls in photo ops, Mr. Biden has also been catching fire over a rather curious role in the firing of a former top prosecutor in the country of Ukraine. Joining us now with these stories, RT International correspondent Caleb Maupin. Thank you so much for coming on today, Caleb. It's a pleasure to have you.
Sure, pleasure to be here.
So, Caleb, look, Biden back in February 2014 was named by the Obama administration as kind of the point person on Ukraine when all the troubles and things like that were happening there, which is a pretty, it's a pretty contentious time to be overseeing that part of the world and the United States' relationship to it. Caleb, what exactly are the accusations coming out now from Ukraine about, that Mr. Biden is being accused of?
Well, it's widely known that Joe Biden's son, Hunter Biden, is heavily invested in Burisma Holdings, and that's the largest non-governmental natural gas company in Ukraine. And back in 2014, that raised some eyebrows, and it raised some more eyebrows when Joe Biden visited Ukraine in April of 2014 and basically told them to stop relying on so many natural gas imports from Russia. But now, the latest is that we at this point have video from when Joe Biden was speaking at the Council on Foreign Relations last year. And in that video, he brags about getting the general prosecutor of Ukraine fired. He says there was some money that was going to Ukraine, and he called him up, and he does his whole, his Joe Biden working class tough guy thing, and he says, I told him that unless that guy was fired, the money would go away. He got the general prosecutor of Ukraine fired. He brags about this. Well, what it turns out is this prosecutor, this general prosecutor of Ukraine that Joe Biden brags about getting fired, was investigating his son's company. On 3 different counts, the general prosecutor was actually investigating the Burisma Holdings, the company that Joe Biden's son is heavily invested in. So people look at that and they say, whoa, that kind of reeks of a conflict of interest. But it gets to a bigger issue, which is at this point, Russia's economy is centered around selling oil and natural gas in the international markets. They've got 2 state-controlled corporations there, Gazprom and Rosneft, and every ounce of oil and gas that Russia sells is oil and gas that somebody is not buying from BP, from ExxonMobil, from Wall Street and London-based natural gas and oil corporations. And the energy markets have a lot to do with the geopolitical tension that is going on. There's a big incentive for Wall Street and London energy corporations to push Russia out of the market.
Caleb, it's not as if Biden doesn't have enough, aside from being a 2-time loser in the primaries and going at it for a 3rd time as running for president. Do you think this could be an issue for him as he gets in there and starts, once he eventually actually says, I'm running, and runs? Yeah. Do you think it'd be an issue for him?
Well, the crazy thing is, Joe Biden, just like his proclivities with women, he does this out in the open. He doesn't try to cover it up. He's sitting there in the meeting, basically saying that he got the general prosecutor of Ukraine fired, that he called him up, he had him on the phone, he told him they wouldn't get the money unless the guy was fired. But what's more interesting is, where was Joe Biden speaking? He was speaking at the Council on Foreign Relations, one of the most powerful think tanks in Washington, D.C. That's basically where U.S. foreign policy is thought up. And I actually have here in my hand the list of funders of the Council on Foreign Relations, the institute that is thinking up U.S. foreign policy. They think it up at the Council on Foreign Relations, and the CIA and the Pentagon carry it out. And this is like a laundry list of powerful corporations, the Rockefellers, Boeing, the Carlyle Group. I mean, this is who is writing foreign policy, and this is where Joe Biden is lecturing the world about corruption.
That's a very good point that you just brought up, Caleb. I got to say, man, great report on this. Keep up the great work out there, and definitely, we'll definitely love to have you back on again soon. Thank you for this great work on looking up this Joe Biden story.
Always a pleasure.